by the TAAT, the Technologies for African Agricultural Transformation. We have just 1 hour, so as moderator, I want to make sure I don't take too much of the time. But the key element that I like to raise is that the focus of this whole event, obviously, is on resilient food systems, but we are looking at the technology brokerage dimension. My name is Kwesi Atakra, and I am with the International Institute for Tropical Agriculture. I also serve within the clearinghouse of the Technologies for African Agricultural Transformation, TAAT. We have two people who will be sharing opening remarks, and that's meant to set the scene. Once again, I want to emphasize this is technology brokerage for a resilient food system in Africa. So I'm going to call Dr. Martin Frejene. Martin is the Director for Agriculture and Agro-Industry at AFDB, the African Development Bank. That is a key funder for this initiative called TAAT. And so Martin, let me give you the floor to give us your opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Kwesi. And it's a pleasure to give the opening remarks at this meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, we all know that in the last 4 years, approximately, Africa's agriculture has been facing tremendous challenges. From the pandemic to low cost to climate change, there has been big changes and big impacts on yields of African farmers. In the last 3 years, at least, there has been a big difference of up to 50% in yield. But fortunately, the CGIAR centers have developed technologies that can help us overcome those big variabilities and build resilience into African agriculture. The bank has been funding for the last 3 years also technologies for African agricultural transformation that we'll be hearing more about this morning. This platform, this program has contributed immensely to helping Africa adapt to climate change and adapt to the COVID-19 pandemic and adapt to low cost through dissemination, widespread dimension at scale of climate adapted varieties. Also through introduction of low carbon emission protein production like aquaculture and also livestock. And lastly, through water efficient irrigation, that has really helped African farmers boost their yields. I will leave you with 3 examples before I stop. The first is wheat in Sudan. Sudan is a big importer of wheat. Wheat is the #1 food item. In the last 3 years, Sudan has doubled its wheat production simply by producing 65,000 tons of certified seeds of 5 heat-tolerant varieties, distributing them to farmers and planting 294,000 hectares of wheat. Sudan's wheat harvest in 2019-2020 was the largest ever, 1.1 million tons of wheat. The same story can be said also for maize. Drought-tolerant maize distributed by TAAT to farmers in Zambia and Zimbabwe and planted on 864,000 hectares was the reason why the impact of droughts was not felt so heavily that season in Southern Africa. And thirdly, we all know the big success story of aquaculture in DRC, in Nigeria, in Egypt. Aquaculture is becoming an alternative source of low carbon, low emission, and protein production. We have succeeded in Sudan, in Zambia, in Zimbabwe with these crops. Now it's time to replicate it, to expand the frontiers of TAAT and to succeed in every single country and in all the 9 priority commodities, and we can do that. That is why I'm so happy that this meeting is taking place, where we can brainstorm on how we can keep moving forward. The bank also is, and IFAD has started the financing facility for food and nutrition in Africa. This is a fund that will mobilize $1 billion in the next 2 years to support TAAT with grants, to support countries who want to participate in the TAAT program with loans, and to support the private sector involved in these sectors with loan guarantees. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Africa's time. Africa can indeed adapt its agriculture to climate change. Africa can indeed raise its productivity. Africa can indeed become a powerhouse in agricultural production globally. Thank you very much. And back to you, Kwesi.
Thank you so much, Martin, for making those important elements and linking the role of the bank into this whole process. I now want to call on Dr. Kenton Dashil. Ken is the Deputy Director General at the International Institute for Tropical Agriculture, and he is in charge of partnerships for delivery. Kenton, over to you, please.
Thank you very much, Kwesi. And Martin, thank you so much for that very inspiring opening remarks. We are together at the AGR side event on technology brokerage for resilient food systems in Africa. And I want to focus on the two words technology and brokerage. Technology is the use of science to invent useful things to solve problems. And brokerage is one who acts to do brokerage, and it includes the processes and the mechanisms to be an intermediary or to distribute things. So we're looking for science-based innovations and technologies that can help solve the problems so that we can have a more resilient food system in Africa. As we look at this, there are organizations and people that have in-depth knowledge about technologies. These are science-based things that can solve problems for our food systems in Africa. And the other group of people are those people and organizations are those that need these technologies and innovations to solve those problems. And this side event is all about describing how the technologies for African agriculture transformation, TAAT, and we usually just say TAAT, as Martin and Kwesi have already done, how they are providing this brokerage service here in Africa. Now, I just have two requests for the participants of our meeting today. First, I would like everyone to take note on how you can become a partner in TAAT. If you are a technology provider, if you have knowledge about technologies, you can help us in TAAT by making these technologies available. And if you are one of those that need these technologies, you're a farmer or you're a government leader, etc., leader of a project that's helping to transform African agriculture, take note on how you can participate in this program. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, we welcome your suggestions on how TAAT can be a better broker for technologies in Africa. Kwesi, thank you very, very much for giving me just an opportunity to say a few comments, and back to you.
Thank you very much, Kenton. I just want to re-emphasize the two words that you expanded on. The word technology. Technology is part of the solution, but obviously it is not the only thing. Technology by itself needs to get somewhere, and that's where you brought in brokerage. That brokerage is also a key element in terms of how do you link the technology from where it is developed all the way to how it is uptaken. Well, ladies and gentlemen, in this meeting, we also want to engage participants very actively. So I want to encourage all of us to make use of our chat box. If we have any questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat box as we go on with the process. But having said that, we are going to run a poll, an opening poll, just to pitch where we stand with regard to the brokerage issue, technology brokerage issue. So I would request the technical facilitator to put the first poll on the screen for us, please. Atayi, can you help? Is the poll coming on?
Yes, I've been able to put the poll in the chat box, and responses will be coming in the chat box on the platform.
Okay. Can I then request everybody please take a look at the chat box? I don't see it in my chat box, so I don't know. I'm not sure if people are seeing the poll in their chat box. I was expecting it would be able to come on the screen. My chat box, Ify is also saying she hasn't seen it, so I don't think it is working. Our technical facilitator. Well, basically, I wouldn't go on this because of time. The issue we wanted to address through the first poll is that this concept of technology brokerage is so far not very clear to many actors in the agriculture research for development space. You know, we use the word, but the question is, what does it really mean and what does it entail? So the first poll was to see whether people agree with this statement and that there is need for greater clarification and grounding to be effective. I would be bold to say, I am sure if the poll had worked, we would see that most people agree that that concept is not very clear and we need to be a bit more clear in terms of clarifying what exactly it is. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I will suggest we move on straight into the heart of the matter. And this is going to be the panel presentations. And the focus of the panel presentations is on the same theme of this event, which is technology brokerage for a resilient food system in Africa. The first presentation will be given by Innocent Musibiamana. Innocent is the head of the clearinghouse of TAAT. And the clearinghouse has a big responsibility in terms of managing technology brokerage and engagement with countries in relation to TAAT technologies. So, Innocent, you have 10 minutes and the floor is open for you.
To Martin.
Go ahead, Innocent. We can see your screen. We can't hear you. Are you muted?
So far, and where we are heading as an agenda of to transform agriculture on the continent. So indeed, as was said, we have these proven technologies that have been developed by a consortium of different CG centers and other specialized institutions. The main is to bring this technology into the hands of millions of farmers to be able to double productivity and by 2025, able to reach 40 million accessing to these high-yielding varieties and also quality breeds and fingerlings as to address the productivity gap on the continent. So I think that's, as you are already aware, the TAAT is structured on 9 commodities and 6 enablers. As you will see, each commodity will lead institutions as a technology developer from rice, high-yielding climate varieties, maize, elite water efficient varieties, where they, as Martin said, especially the wheat that has really made a big change in terms of productivity due to the heat-tolerant wheat variety in Sudan and Ethiopia. These are proven technologies that are already set by this lead institution. To achieve this productivity will only achieved if we combine it with these enablers. How do we set this capacity building throughout the deployment of this technology? How do we tackle the issue for low fertility of the soil, the engagement with youth, and also the policy issues as we look at today, technology deployment across the continent. So as my colleague Kwesi said, the technology brokerage, as we look at it at this level, we look at different 4 steps. And the 4 steps start as you will look at to the technology profiling, bringing technology users, developers, and the government, private sector together as we facilitate this whole process in the brokering of this technology, and then deploy technology to the farmer. So the approach at the we are doing a TAAT program is the tool that we are using in this brokerage and the deployment. We are using the technology toolkit. As I described, this technology, this highly varieties, for example, on rice or the heat-tolerant varieties of wheat, will not achieve this productivity until we look at the bundle of technology linking together. What is the fertility issue? How do we address the water? How do we address the weed? How do we look at the pull factor in terms of marketing and the financing, so that the whole entire bundle technology pulling together a technology toolkit are able to address this productivity and link it to the market as we promote the food system on the continent and bringing on board the resilient agriculture on the continent. So the 4 steps, as I said, we bring together the government, private sector, and development partners as we source the fund to this technology deployment across the continent. So the step 1 is profiling these technologies, putting them together, accessible, and then try to go as these technologies are proven in an agroecologic zone, will be replicated to other agroecologic zones, adjusted to the local context, and then work with the government, the 3rd stage, and the development partners as how we integrate this technology into the programs under preparation or program under design process, so that we are able to work together in this partnership to deploy this technology and being accessible to farmers. So the 4 stages are combining the brokerage part. 1, we have already 114 technology identified ready for the next users, and 100 have already been profiled and put in the database of TAAT database. And I will ask my colleagues as we end the session to share with our audience the links that lead to all this TAAT technology catalog that are easily accessible, so that our audience can really have access to this technology and use as you go forward in this agenda of technology transformation of the continent. So I have already said that this adjustment of technology to the local context, and we work now in 29 countries across the continent as we deploy this technology in different agroecologic zones on these commodities as presented here. And then, as I already said, we are working closely with the bank, IFAD, and the World Bank. So the see the initial fund that were provided by the bank was to facilitate and show that this concept is possible. As we deploy this technology. Now we go to go faster and reach more farmers on the continent. We need to work closely with development partners, especially as we work in the design of this program. So the TAAT program will provide the technical assistance to the countries in the design of this program, as bringing together all this expertise in design appropriate and resilient agriculture as we avail the climate smart technology to the different countries as accessing to this proven technology on the continent. So far we are working in the bank and designing a supporting country designing program integrating the technology as we go, but also providing the technical assistance in the implementation process as replicating this technology to the large scale in other countries. So I will not go far much on the achievement as we have been said so far. As you see, for the last 3 years, as you see the increase of productivity as bundling of this technology as a package in different countries, being wheat and maize, orange sweet potato, rice, aquaculture, small livestock. We have this example that we need to take to large scale on the continent so that we can really transform this continent. The only thing I want to add on as moving forward as a lesson learned as we implemented this program is the component of the importance of the conducive environment, the policy component, because as we promote this proven technology at the country level and the regional level, we need to create this conducive environment to allow the transboundary cross of these breeds, fingerlings, and high-yielding varieties to be able access to the community. So will be achieved until we help countries addressing this bottleneck in terms of policy as a policy enabler that you have under the TAAT program to facilitate this brokerage. So this is some of the achievement as we look forward, as we train farmers, we facilitate the farmers outreach and see this technology through the massive campaign, but also this example of Togo where we work with private sector, they are investing into the processing, adding value of cassava. This is an example that where we bring on board the private sector. So moving forward, as I said, is to look at this regional context and the work on the bottleneck that are really working toward to regional harmonization of regulation for improve the cross-border of seed, fertilizer, and the agriculture food, as we look at the resilient agriculture and also improve food system, whereby we look to this technology as moving forward. What information in terms of digital solution on marketing, distribution on the cold chain, and the modernization of safety. So this integrated food system technology will lead also to look at the whole entire food system as starting from the increased productivity by accessing to proven technology, but also on the post-harvest marketing and distribution part of it. So that's how we can achieve the transformation of the continent. So we call all of you working together, and this is really an agenda together we can achieve as a TAAT will contribute to that as we work together on this imperative, ending hunger and malnutrition using proven technology on our continent in our lifetime. That will be a right legacy moving forward. And you have good example that we need to really replicate at a scale, and working together will be possible. Thank you very much. Over to you, Kwesi.
Thank you so much, Innocent. It's been very useful to give us a sense of what technology brokerage implies or involves. And you highlighted 4 key areas. You said technology profiling. First of all, identify where the technologies are. What do they really? So having that is a key part of it. And then you also talked about the technology toolkit, or the bundling of technologies. In other words, single technologies may not by themselves address the big challenge, because you've got to see the technology in the context of the reality. So it requires bundling. Sometimes 3 or 4 technologies are bundled together to solve a particular challenge. So going through that and developing these toolkit, which is kind of like a basket of options, is very important. And then the third thing you talk about is the importance of now integration of these technologies into programs, including programs of countries and other development partners in countries, etc. And that's a very critical part, very important part of the whole process. And then, of course, in the final analysis, we're talking about realization on the ground, implementation, assessing impact, and those sort of things. Thank you very much. You've also highlighted that there are actors, and those actors include private sector, they include youth, they include women, and of course, the big focus is the smallholder farmers and other medium-level farmers that we work with. So having said that, let's move straight to the second presentation, and that will be by Ife. Ife Umuna is the co-CEO of a program called Nourishing Africa. And Nourishing Africa is actually a network of agripreneurs, which has membership across the continent. So Ife would be sharing with us her perspectives coming in from the private sector in relation to technology brokerage. So let's have the presentation of Ife, and Ife, over to you, please.
Thank you, Kwesi. And thank you to all the speakers prior to. It was quite enlightening to hear about the great work that TAAT is doing. And I'm going to try and tie up quickly some information, as well as share some of the experiences of Nourishing Africa, as well as its entrepreneurs when it comes to technology brokerage. So the perspective from the private sector. Starting off, we're going to discuss the importance of agtech innovation, followed by some insights, and then the role of entrepreneurs when it comes to agriculture and food, when it comes to tech and innovation. And starting off, I think it's important to note the critical need for technology brokerage within the agriculture and food space. We know that we've seen high and unprecedented input costs, asymmetry when it comes to information, and fragmented value chains. We've seen low productivity, and we've seen a range of different hurdles that entrepreneurs, smallholder farmers that are facing, and this has only been exacerbated by COVID-19. But prior to COVID-19, we really saw that there was a growing trend of technology being used in other sectors such as transportation, retail, energy, software development, and the likes. And we saw that this was really being pushed by the youth. When you look at hubs and innovation hubs, acceleration hubs, tech hubs, they were driven by youth across the continent. And we saw some exciting business models that were emerging, such as Cow Tribe, which is essentially an Uber for vets in Ghana, where last mile smallholder farmers can, using a USSD code, request for veterinary services and vaccinations. We also seen Twiga in Kenya, who leverage tech to connect the fruit ecosystem to both the rural and urban settings as well. So for us, we always ask ourselves, who leads digital transformation within a company? Is it the CEO, is it the CTO, or is it COVID-19? And unfortunately, for most organizations, it was COVID-19. But this is an opportunity that we believe can transform the agriculture and food space, whether it's through the use of technology with agricultural inputs, or crop production, or big data, or processing. There are so many ways in which technology can be harnessed to scale and improve the operations as well as the business models of agribusinesses across the continent. And we've seen that COVID-19 has brought new challenges to entrepreneurs in particular, such as disengagement of staff, loans, repayments being stifled, food waste. And we've really seen that there's an urgent need for the ecosystem at large to provide support to agri-food entrepreneurs through access to information and resources, knowledge tools, financing, and ecosystem support, most of which can be done using technology and information. So for us at Nourishing Africa, this is what we do. Our mission is to drive the profitable and sustainable growth of the sector by attracting, empowering, equipping, and connecting young agri-food entrepreneurs. And for us, our vision is really to be food secure as a continent and net exporters of food to the world. And we do this through 3 key functions: the hub, which has a range of data and tools, resources and information necessary for entrepreneurs to have access to. It's free. We also have a membership portal as well, where we engage, or we've created a community for these agripreneurs to engage with one another, learn with one another, partner, and try and help each other's challenges, because we know that entrepreneurship is a lonely journey, but it doesn't have to be. It's important to find a community. We engage in knowledge and capacity building as well. And as I said, with the membership benefits, we provide access to funding opportunities, marketplace. We also ensure that our members are able to connect with one another, free advertising for their businesses and opportunities to showcase what they're currently doing. All of which is online, using technology as well. I think one thing I noticed previously with Innocent, what he was saying was things like technology toolkits and assessing what is needed through technology brokerage is something that I think would be perfect for Nourishing Africa in terms of assessing how the members are utilizing their technology and what can be done to scale and to increase their productivity. And we also have capacity building. For us, we know that entrepreneurs have a range of questions that we often can't ask, or they don't have access to experts to ask. So we provide this facilitation of experts to entrepreneurs, as well as our flagship networking event, which is First Thursday, which brings entrepreneurs together to connect with one another, for us to share upcoming opportunities that we believe they should tap into as well. And during COVID-19, we quickly realized that the entrepreneurs that we were working with had really had business models that were not resilient, that could not withstand the shocks of COVID-19 or any future shocks in that sense. So we created the Nourishing Africa Entrepreneur Support Program in partnership with the MasterCard Foundation and USADF, which is a 4-step program, most of which is online, to provide a diagnostic tool for self-assessment. We provided training on various aspects of agribusiness, as well as providing small loans and ongoing support for these entrepreneurs to really put in the work and to put in the effort that they have stated that they want to do. And when we look at our membership, we have members from farm to fork, all the way from research to food preparation and blogging. And we support over 1,100 members across 34 countries in Africa. And when we talk about business models in particular, and this is something that Kwesi has also discussed, the use of technology, data, and innovation, and assessing what is needed from an agribusiness point of view, as an operational point of view, and seeing how we can engage in technology brokerage aimed at really scaling agriculture and food across the continent. So to close off, I have some practical steps that I would love for you to consider. The first is building partnerships across various food ecosystems, putting private sector at the center of transformation, and making sure that we use technology to leapfrog, but it needs to be affordable and accessible. And investing in building talent for the sector. We know that the average age of someone engaged in agriculture and food space is 60. So getting youth involved is not a want, it's a need. And unlocking catalytic and patient capital and leveraging platforms such as Nourishing Africa and TAAT to build capacity building, linkages, and technology brokerage. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ife. This is very, very interesting. It gives us an example of how this brokerage is taking place. And I like the 4 action steps that you concluded with. I think that's something that will help us round up this whole event. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank those of you who have already put in the chat box, basically introducing yourself, who you are. But then also, if you have questions to any of the panelists, please put the question in the chat box and we will find time to get to that. At this point, I'd like to call our third panelist. He is Dr. Yonga Munyaradzi, who is the leader of the TAAT Compact on Maize. Yonga, over to you, please.
Thank you, Kwesi. Hello, everyone. In the next few minutes, I'm going to talk about the role of TAAT Maize Compact in technology brokerage for food system resilience in Africa. I hope the story that I'm going to talk about TAAT Maize would show the strong partnerships that we formed to broker technologies and deliver them to the farmers for impact. I would quickly start by mentioning some of the objectives under TAAT Maize Compact that were guiding us in this implementation. We started with the adoption of new technologies, and here we're deploying a new elite climate smart varieties. These obviously brokered from CG centers, private sector, and national programs. Productivity, the major aim was to increase productivity of the maize along the maize value chain, complementing the elite climate smart varieties with good agricultural practices. Seed systems to enhance consistent supply of high quality seed. So we had to enhance the seed systems, working with various partners, National Seed Association and seed companies, and fostering market linkages to for input and output markets, as well as wealth creation for those involved in the maize value chain. And also gender mainstreaming there in terms of increasing women and youth participation was one of the key objectives there, and digital agriculture for improving access to information on good agricultural practices and also attracting youth, and eventually to commercialize agriculture by using mechanized implements to make efficient operations and also reduce treasury. And this would also deliberate effort to attract youth to the maize value chain. And I would say these technology brokerage and delivery helped us to achieve the above objectives. And starting with the ecosystem of partners, I would want to say we had investor, the FDB, and also ATF and ITA coordinating the activities of the maize value chain. But I want to quickly say we are working with NAS, CG, technology providers, to broker these technologies, especially the maize varieties from their programs, and also even supervision of some activities in country. Worked with commodity association, farmer groups, and so on for implementation using these technologies on the farmer level. And seed companies and private sector, the development of the seed systems, supply of quality seed was done using working with the seed companies and their associations, and as I said, finance and credit providers, as well as the ICT platform. And also we're working with other TAAT compacts and enablers to make sure that we achieve the delivery of the brokered technologies. Giving some examples of the achievements that we managed through the partnerships to scale out climate smart varieties. Most of these varieties, as I said, were brokered from the programs like breeding programs like WEMA, the drought tego hybrids, the DTMA of CIMIT, IITA products, and the NAS breeding programs. And these were also combined things like striga resistance, disease tolerance, especially MLN, enhanced nutrition, and even foliarworm control using Potenza GOC treatment. in partnership with 40 seed companies that were engaged, we managed to scale out 24,500 metric tons of seed, high quality certified seed of 48 climate smart varieties. And even we also deployed basic seed. And this was done in partnership with foundation seed entities like Quali Basic Seed. And this were the varieties, the seed that were scaled out benefited 2.4 million farmers. And this was possible working with the private sector, the seed companies, who were able to do that, even including distribution of small packs for farmers to do on trials. And these pictures are showing some of the seed companies that we're working with to be able to scale out those technologies, and even the NAS, Karo in Kenya, doing some activities on the ground showing good productivity. And coming to technical and stewardship support to farmers on good agriculture practices, the field demos and demonstrations and field days were conducted, and even workshops to be able to support farmers with good agricultural practices. And this really ended up with improved yields. We can see here tractors, people in the field assessing the efficacy of Potenza Duo. You would also see in Uganda, USTA, which is the Uganda Seed Trade Association, training farmers on good agricultural practices in the collaboration that was happening on the ground. And this resulted in farmers achieving the productivity that we aimed to achieve. I would also want to talk about effective public-private partnerships that helped to deploy Potenza Duo to fight fall armyworm. This work was done in Zambia and Zimbabwe over 2 seasons, where private sector seed companies dressed the seed or treated seed, maize seed, with Potenza Duo for protection against fall armyworm. And this seed was distributed mainly to farmers, mainly through the government programs of Zambia and Zimbabwe. And the productivity was enhanced, and in Zambia, yield advantage of 1.6 tons per hectare were achieved through using Potenza Duo. And it also shows some of the pictures where FDB were monitoring some of the activities that we were doing on Potenza Duo. And this was a good partnership that managed to combat fall armyworm in those countries. Another thing that I need to highlight is the focus on women entrepreneurs. We're also working with women entrepreneurs to scale out these climate smart varieties and other complementary agricultural technologies. For example, in Namburi Seeds, the director, the owner is a lady, and she contributed to the seed that was scaled out in Tanzania. Almost 13% of that seed came from the Namburi Seeds. And also engaged women and youth groups in Western Kenya to be able to establish demos and field days so that other farmers would come and learn good agricultural practice and improve productivity. We also fostered market systems and value addition through the maize value chain to do agriculture as a business. So there's a lot of linkages with input-output markets like fertilizer suppliers. The anchor borrower scheme in Nigeria also supported farmers doing maize. And also the farmers were linked to grain off-takers so that they get the market with good prices for their surplus production once we improved the productivity. And in terms of value addition, the maize grain process by millers and so on to make sure that there's value addition and the flour, maize flour that is higher value than the maize grains. And I would want to say maybe the strong partnerships formed under the maize value chain helped to build a resilient food system and business through TAAT. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yonga. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you would agree with me that our three panelists have been very helpful for this process. Inusan started giving us clarity in terms of how TAAT sees the whole issue of technology brokerage, and also showed some of the specific achievements that TAAT has been able to generate, and talking about the importance of partnerships. We had Ife coming in from the private sector perspective, but going beyond that, talking a little bit about the models they are using also in relation to the Nourishing Africa initiative, which is very complementary to the kind of things that are happening within TAAT, therefore a partnership opportunity there. And then finally, we've got a very specific example of how things play out within specific TAAT compact, in this case, Maize, that Yonga has shared with us. I want us to now use a bit of time for the participants. I'm sure some of you have questions that you might want to raise. So I'll ask Atai, who has been helping me looking at the chat box to see if there are any questions that are in the chat box. If there are any questions and you really want to raise a point, please show by raising your hand, and we'll give you an opportunity to do that. But first of all, Atai, can you take the floor and let us know if there are any questions that might need to be addressed?
Okay, thank you very much, Kwesi. We have just a question from Nadia Martinez, who is an agribusiness consultant. And she says that rural entrepreneurs are well positioned to provide services to farmers if they have access to agricultural technologies, that is machinery, which is more cost effective than each farmer purchasing it. It also creates business opportunities for young people who can build service enterprises. Challenges include access to the right technology and financing options. Any successful examples from others on this? Thank you.
Very good. So that's a broad issue brought in there. And I don't know if you would be able to comment on that point, whether there is any experience in that regard.
Thank you. I think for us, what we have seen, let me switch on my camera. What we have seen across the board is that we need agripreneurs in rural settings to come together. So what Nadia is saying makes perfect sense, but we need some form of coalition or some form of association where this technology can be deployed and used in a community setting. So for us at Nourishing Africa, I think what we've started working with is with youth associations to try and really leverage their associations to amplify their voices and their needs, based on knowing that individually, it's very, very, very hard to support rural farmers, youth, anyone in the agricultural space. But collectively, it is much easier. And through the Nourishing Africa Youth Coalition that we're currently building up, we're trying to ensure that we can engage in financing and technology, as Nadia has said, on a wider spectrum for entrepreneurs and for youth in rural settings through youth associations.
Thank you, Ife. Rural entrepreneurs are definitely crucial in this whole process. I'd like to ask Yonga to also share his thoughts. How is this sort of addressed in the context of the Maize Compact?
Yeah, thanks, Kwesi. It's a good question or discussion point. Under Maize, TAAT Maize, we discovered that farmer aggregation is key for us to be able to efficiently use to do mechanized operations for economies of scale. So the aggregation is quite key, and even ICT platforms can be utilized to aggregate farmers so that we have big blocks of fields that we can use planters, other things, and effectively. I've seen also to agree with the what was put on the chart is to say even enterprises in the rural areas can also help. We've worked with community-based organizations, and they also help us implement these activities of delivery of technologies to farmers. So it works as well in the maize value chain. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm just scanning through some of the introductions on the chat box. I see that we have Mel will watch with us. And Mel is the regional director for Sasakawa African Association. Mel, I just want to just tap into your mind, because the Sasakawa Association, the work that you do, brokerage and brokering is a key element of that. Would you take a minute or two just to share some thoughts from your own end on just how crucial this element is? Oh, probably you don't have access to speak. So in that case, I'm very sorry. I did not clear that from the technical moderator. So, okay. Let me then pass on to Innocent. I mean, based on what we have heard from Yonga and also from Ifi, and looking at the infrastructure that is set up within TAAT, how do you see the whole role of rural entrepreneurs as well as youth entrepreneurs being addressed in the context of this brokerage dimension of TAAT? So two key elements, there's been a lot of talk about private sector, but also rural entrepreneurs, can also be seen as private sector in a way. They are also private sector. And then we have the youth dimension. How does it play out in TAAT? Just very briefly.
Thank you, Chrissy. A quick one, maybe I will give you an example where the youth played a major role in terms of brokerage and contributed to the deployment of technology in the intervention. So a specific example goes to Zambia, whereby by bringing youth together, training them on skills in terms of technology on aquaculture, especially on post-harvest handling and also the growing on fast-growing disease-resistant seed of fish, that has resulted really the youth becoming entrepreneur in terms of in Zambia. And as we talk now, they are able to have the return of between $500 to $600 individually, and as they are supporting, making a business around the fish production and also the post-harvest as in their community. So this is really a good example, and also other parts of the continent where they are making a bigger role as facilitating access to this technology, because they are dynamics in terms of access to this technology tool. So that's really something that we think this transformation will happen until our youth are very well organized, becoming entrepreneur and making a return out of this technology that are deployed out across the continent. So this is really a walleye on that. So I saw one question from Kaping Regina, as was asking what we have been doing in terms of TAAT and especially supporting countries in this brokerage, facilitating for TAAT. So one of the lesson learned, Regina, is that as we engage with countries, especially deploying these technologies to be integrated to country programs, the first thing as a TAAT program ecosystem, we needed to understand the country needs, the country challenges, priorities, and then we respond, we come up with this proven technology to respond to the real challenge the countries are facing. So that has really been a game changer, so that now countries are really receptive to our offer in terms of contributing to the country transformation agenda. So that's bringing together this ecosystem of TAAT compact and understanding fit well with the country context. That has really led to country be able to accommodate this technology integrated to country program. Now we accompany them in the implementation. So far, 22 countries are being engaged as we work forward. Over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Inusan. That's very good, giving a very practical example in how this thing is actually playing out in the country by country context. Are we able to run the closing poll? And I think because of time, we probably would have to drop the idea. But what we wanted to run in the closing poll was basically to assess the way in which this discussion that we have had may have opened the door for a better understanding and better appreciation of the crucial importance of this technology brokerage process, really identifying these key actors and ensuring that we don't just go on developing more and more technologies which are not changing anything on the ground. So I think that's a key challenge that we all need to be able to focus on moving forward. And the actors that were mentioned, private sector, well, of course, the first actor that was mentioned included government, being able to link with government, seeing how this technology will help the government to achieve what they themselves want to achieve for the country. We talked about private sector, the role of private sector in that process as part of the intermediation group of agencies. We talked about the youth, that if you don't engage youth in this, you're not really going to reach your targets. And of course, we talked about women. And finally, we've talked about the critical importance of the rural entrepreneurs, not forgetting the smallholder farmers who are really working so actively to provide the food that we need. So I think that has been the key sense in terms of what we've been able to do. Because our time is so limited, we haven't been able to generate as much discussion, but I believe the key points have been made. And moving forward, before I close, let me also say that within TAAT, we are working with regional authorities in establishing what we call technology fairs at regional level. And the first of these is going to be organized with CORAF and ECOWAS for Western Central Africa. And that is scheduled for the period, the week of the 25th of October. So you will be hearing, if you have put your email in this chat box, you can be sure that you will be getting updates. So I want to encourage those of you who may not have put down your email, please do, just introduce who you are and then put in there the email for who you are. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, we want to take a picture to show who was at this event, and I will therefore appeal to all of you to put on your cameras. Please turn on your video. And then if you look in the top right-hand corner, once again, I'm not sure the technical element allows that. If you look in the top right-hand corner, you will see the view button and click on gallery. Yeah, okay, so that enables, okay. I realize now that it's only the facilitators and the panelists who have access to their video. So we cannot take the group photo. I apologize for that. But I think I just want to thank everybody, all the participants who have been in this. I thank you all so much, and we look forward to further interaction. Please put your email in the chat box, and we will continue to engage with you. Thank you, speakers. Thank you all very much, and bye-bye for now.
Thank you, Chris.